This upcoming new moon in Aquarius is an opportunity to emotionally connect to your future self, while also simultaneously shedding and building or rebuilding who it is that you want to be or become, your identity, and your life. Embrace what is coming with faith and release with gratitude. This is your time to do things in a new way. Not just any way, but your way as well. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Christine. Welcome to this video on the new moon in Aquarius happening on February the 9th at 6:58 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Correction, at 5:58 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 20 degrees and 40 minutes of Aquarius. You know, very quickly, this lunation, not many harsh aspects. The transits are pretty straightforward, but there is a continual push to keep moving forward. Ever see or have seen probably music videos or perhaps movies where you see like a wall closing in on someone or it's compressing? And I'm immediately getting the Cardigans, the music band, that video, Erase and Rewind, where they are singing and slowly the room is closing in and it's almost like they're about to be smushed. This is what I'm feeling, but in a positive way. We're being ushered to go forward. Perhaps a better analogy or example would be or is a tidal wave or body of water kind of moving you ashore. We're being guided to go forward, to keep moving forward, and to let go and release. And a lot of this tends to happen simultaneously. And this new moon, which is why I aptly named this video or on the thumbnail, Rebirth of Our Future Selves, because I feel like many of us are putting into pieces and aligning ourselves through visions, through our intuition, through psychic messages, very spiritual here, as well as very forward thinking. We are aligning with elements of ourselves that we may not see completely. It's almost as if back in the day, the computers, I remember with DOS, with different softwares, obviously it's upgraded now, how you can move cursors, you can create different types of like artwork and different images, and now you can do a lot more, right, with different softwares that we have. But you don't always see the complete image. And perhaps that's also similar to children's toys where you can create certain things, or even when you're doing artwork, you only see parts of the finished product. And that's exactly what I'm getting for any of you that are artists, because there's a lot of energy here around creation, rebirth, and anything related to you birthing an idea or something coming from you, which could be any form of art, writing, expression, ideas at their very basic level. This is the energy that I've been feeling with this. So you may be seeing, pieces of your own canvas, of your own life unfolding before you, but you're only seeing maybe one part that's already saturated with an image, idea, or feeling. And it's slowly being, perhaps, I was going to say carved out, but that's not the right word. It's slowly being unveiled for you. So there's an energy here of taking the past with us, embracing the future, but we're still in the present. So we're not completely seeing things materialize in the way that we want. As always, we're going to cover the energy, the transits, degree theory, Sabian symbol, channeled messages. I'm doing things a little bit differently too, and I'm trying to streamline this. So I'd love to hear your comments. If you've watched this or if you're joining, welcome. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see that's not here, or anything that is here that you're like, nah, it can go. I'm trying to make this more streamlined, relevant, and simply applicable in a very practical way. Timestamps are always provided, and anytime I mentioned any times, dates in particular, but times associated with transits or anything like that, it's always going to be Eastern Standard Time. Also, the link to the moon is provided below if you'd like to follow along and take a look while I talk. So let's dive into the astrology, you all. The overall energetic theme or energetic print for this lunation is a lot about shedding who we are, like I mentioned earlier. It's really about letting go of old versions of ourselves, letting go of beliefs. It's almost as if, imagine you're wearing maybe 100 coats or shirts. You just have a lot of layers on you and you're slowly releasing them. You're like, 2003 can leave, 2002, 1980 can leave as well. So it's constant shedding and renewal as well happening at the same time. And this is all to consolidate this upgraded, perhaps more futuristic version of ourselves that we are also attuning to in terms of frequency, because there is an overarching energy right now with the nodes in Aries and Libra, with Chiron in Aries in particular, and with Pluto having recently ingressed into Aquarius, of really individuating our path ourselves, figuring out who we are, at least in this season of our life, because I feel like that's a continuous journey. I feel like I'm using that word incorrectly with continual and continuous. It's a journey that is ongoing, and I feel like we are always going to be in flux and always discovering different parts of ourselves. So in this season of our lives, we're discovering who we are or who we want to become, or even where we're heading towards. Excuse me. How to protect or set boundaries to protect who we are, to safeguard that, because many of us are undoing layers, many layers around trauma, healing, identifying what is important to us, and also our goals. How does this all connect? So there's a lot of changes. If any of you have just been simply, and you didn't even have to be tapped into any type of divination, but you'll just feel it and know there have been a lot of changes that have been happening in quite rapid succession. It's been like fast. Well, kid you not, since the start of 2024, I felt like, call it firework energy. It's just been popping off, and it's not the beautiful display where you can chill out with a drink and hang out and watch it. This is like crap. It's like one thing after another, you know? It's just a lot of changes that are happening right now. And we also have, with Pluto's recent shift into Aquarius, we have many personal planets going through Aquarius as well, since we are in the season of Aquarius, and they are making points of contact or conjunctions with Pluto. So there's a lot of cleaning out right now. Ever use those, I don't know what they're called, they're cleaners for your sink, or even create it with baking soda and sometimes vinegar, and you clean it, or lemon, and you realize sometimes stuff comes up, or it simply allows things to filter through. This is what I've been feeling with the energy right now. So major transformations are coming, but I keep getting, it's very quick. You know, the Transformers cartoon, and I got a lot of, I tend to channel a lot of messages related to pop culture, music, references. You know, the Transformers cartoons, if any of you are not familiar with that, you can Google it. They also still continue to make them, you know, in toy form, but they were the robots that transformed into vehicles and, you know, zoomed and did what they needed to. So this is what has been happening with us. We are transforming at such rapid speeds. Some of you may have been feeling restless anxiety, almost feeling like electrical currents are coming through you, nervous energy, something is impending or coming. A lot of this is happening while we are plowing through this, working on ourselves, healing, defining who we are and are not anymore, and also what we are wanting or trying to break free from, resolve, clear up, and also move forward to take steps ahead. Because when this happens all at once, I'll just say it's like a cloud of perhaps potpourri. It's just a bunch of different things, and it can really affect your nervous system, especially in this season. And it can also really make you rethink how you gain or regain or attain inner peace, what that means to you, what that looks like. So, Aquarius is about doing things in a new way. We are intuiting a lot. We are envisioning things that, again, we don't always understand or completely see, but we're feeling that. And things that may be coming to you that don't exist quite yet, or they may look differently. So just remember how you're changing, and the ways and what you're changing in your life may not make sense to you on a practical level, but I feel like this has been more cerebral, more psychic for many of us. Let's jump into the archetype of Aquarius. So Aquarius is very much misunderstood, akin to Saturn, because its traditional ruler is Saturn, and some folks in astrology denote Uranus as its modern day ruler. It just varies. I'm a multidisciplinary, multidimensional scholar in all of my work and all of my life, and so I take that approach with astrology, but I do honor its traditional ruler. And I love the symbolism through what I've been learning through Hellenistic astrology, because Saturn is the outermost planet, at that time. And it's the boundary keeper, or you can say the gatekeeper between what's accepted, what's not, what's closest to the sun, what's not. And so you have an energy here around something, perhaps someone, but a general vibe here of things that may be on the fringe, things that are perhaps closer to, you could say, spirituality, closer to God, closer to obtaining something that we may not always see. And some of you may be familiar with the story surrounding Aquarius, and its mythology comes from the water bearer, Ganymede, who was the cup bearer to Zeus. So in ancient times, cup bearers, and in particular in Greek mythology, provided security because they essentially were poison taste testers, or I should say taste testers in case there was no poison or anything that would harm the gods. So Ganymede was, I would say, picked for this position. And apparently this was a very highly coveted position because you're obviously going to be working with the gods and in close proximity to them. And story has it that Zeus became very infatuated with Ganymede because of his unusual and unique beauty, his qualities, and he apparently turns himself into an eagle, or sends an eagle and abducts him from the human realm back to Mount Olympus. So now Ganymede is essentially alienated, separated, distant in terms of geography, I would say, but also energetically from humankind, from his fellow men or women. And he's now with the gods, but he's not a god. He's not immortal. He's still immortal. So he's existing in this liminal space like, wait, humans think a certain way about me because now I'm with the gods, and the gods are not fully embracing me as a god because I'm not. So there's this in-between space with Aquarius here that we get, and why it's symbolic of the cupbearer or water bearer imagery that we see. And this acts as a bridge between, Earth and the spirit world or heaven. And so in this vein, we can understand a little bit more about Aquarius. And to me, it almost makes it seem like there's an element of bringing things from the past and what we've learned, but also realizing that it doesn't quite fit in with where we are at. Imagine right now if you're driving in a car, or even if you're just walking and you're like, you know what, I'm going to continue using my Walkman. I mean, more power to you. Or even using some type of old technology that maybe needs greater support, maybe like being plugged in or whatnot. And it may be more cumbersome or difficult to find things. And again, I'm not an expert around this, but you're trying to make something from the past exist in the present. And I would say as time moves on, it may be more difficult because you may not find support for it. You may not find plugs if something happens to the original plug. You may not be able to find extra parts, etc. It's similar to cars. Cars, from the 80s, 90s, unless you are a mechanic or know how to restore them or can find parts. I'm not talking about classic models. It gets difficult to find parts. So many of those, what do you do? In the same vein, this is what I've been feeling with what has been going on in terms of who we are in this season, in terms of our identity in particular. So there's a potential here with Aquarius for moving beyond the status quo, moving beyond where we are and progressing forward. It doesn't have to be completely futuristic, as people denote, but it's of a different stature, a different domain, which again, some people may not recognize or feel comfortable in, because it could be something that's completely different than what we've known. And yet again, there's others who are like, I'm going to stay in the past. So there's some elements here that are coming up that are also asking you, what are you afraid to embrace, particularly about yourself, that you may fear, perhaps from responses, or you may fear, how do I say this? You may fear the responses of others, or that others reflect or perhaps deflect onto you. Because when you do something your own way, when you perhaps institutionalize a certain way of being or doing, or the way that you live is very different from others, you're going to face or perhaps open the door for people to comment. But that's when we pay attention to what people say, there's an element here of leaking our power, or perhaps giving that away. And because there's an element with Aquarius of still wanting to maintain that connection socially, that's where those areas come in on, okay, well, how can we honor who we are in a genuine, perhaps authentic way, while also honoring others who may not agree with us, who may not respect the way we are, identify, live, etc. Because this is, I think, the one pinnacle, or perhaps one of the most defining features, or perhaps points of tensions that I feel may define the Aquarian archetype in general. Okay, let's move on to the transits. Guys, this is a new moon, and this happens when the sun conjuncts the moon at its basic level, you guys. So I kept getting a lot of an amplification of our emotional landscape here, obviously, with our energetic output. So for me, it has to do strongly with a new way of being, of identifying, a new persona, something that we are ready to step into. But that means we're going to have to face certain things, fears coming up, uncertainties, especially with Aquarius, because think about it like I explained with the story and its traditional ruler of Saturn. It's on the fringe, right? On the outskirts. Picture Saturn just being the last planet there. And all we see is darkness in the universe and the cosmos. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what's coming. And so there's an element here of a lot of changes that are coming and we don't know, but we feel them. And that may be scary. It may bring up fears from the past, especially as we're healing and things are coming up to be transmuted. We're also working with trying to also exist and move forward in the present time. So there's a lot happening here. And the overall, if I could sum this lunation up in one phrase, it would be do something different with how you identify, how you want your life to be, change things up. I'm going to link the weekly energy forecast for this week, February 5th, because obviously this moon is set within the energies of this week, like other lunations are within their respective weeks. So I go deeper in that video and I'm going to try something different and go a little bit or take an abbreviated perhaps process in this vein and focus on some of the more prominent energies that stick out to me. Because I really want to maintain, like I said earlier, the integrity and brevity of this lunation and focus on the main parts. We have the sun in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus. So this is an element that I discussed in the weekly energy forecast. There's an element of feeling stuck and frustrated. And I feel like this has to do with honoring who we are, our individuality, our own path, but there's restrictions around us, perhaps that we're not able to extricate ourselves from, but also changes and things we need to change that we may not know yet about how to do that. It's almost like realizing, I know I have to make a change here, but I'm not really sure what that is here or when that's going to happen. You just know it has to happen. So the direction in which you may want to go, whether it's your life purposes, your destiny, your career path, and your soul energy, where you would like to put that energy towards, may feel a little bit unclear. I feel like a lot of this is going to come psychically, a strong undercurrent with this lunation of receiving psychic epiphanies and downloads pretty fast, and you're just going to know. With the sun in Aquarius and Uranus, this is about sudden disruption. So again, like I mentioned earlier, this lunation is going to show you glimpses. You're going to get, I feel like some of you may coin this as prophecies or glimpses into the future. Foresight, you may see or feel things and know you have to do them, but don't know why. And then later on, you'll recognize or understand why you had to do that. There's also a fear, I mentioned this too, about who you are, who you think you are, and who you are becoming. Also, who you're releasing, because as you shift your identity, there's a process of grief that we go through. Think of it like a car wash, and imagine you have grief, crying, just like all the emotions here. And then at the end of the car wash, you come out brand spanking new. This is what's happening, and I wish it was that easy. Maybe in the future, especially, with tech, we will go through a process like that, or even, you know, in the bed, similar to an MRI table, I should say. We go there, someone presses the button, and we come out new. What used to take us years will take us an hour or so, who knows. But there's a fear here about shifting who we are, who we identify, what we want to embrace, because that means we are going to lose control in some form of stability, especially with the Taurian energy of what we're letting go and what we may be forced to let go when things just come up and we don't have control over that. Uranus is I put wham, bam, gotcha energy here. So surprises are in store here as you may start to uncover pieces of yourself and you're releasing and moving forward. And so as the season started and with this lunation in Aquarius, a lot of these themes have already been happening and have been highlighted. So there's something here about making progress differently. Remember, the sun rules over your energy, your life force energy, I should say, your ego, your soul, goals, and Uranus rules over sudden change, disruptions, revolutions, progress, innovation. So we may want to control this area of our life, and that's where I feel some of these issues are coming up surrounding the themes I discussed. But this is where leaning in with faith, this may be the difficult part. And also, we're also all learning how to embrace the new, how to embrace change, especially change that's happening rather quickly. We have Venus in Capricorn trining Uranus in Taurus, and Mars in Capricorn sextiling Neptune in Pisces. Very briefly, this is a breakaway and reinvigorate energy. There's a lot of shaking up around these themes, Venusian themes, love, pleasure, relationships, especially romantic ones, friendships, those with females, beauty, pleasures, your appearance. And with the Taurian energy, we want things, or at least we want to achieve and some sort of stability here. But Uranus in Taurus is not a happy camper because Uranus is about changes here. And I feel like some of these are happening for reasons you may not understand now that are leading you towards greater stability. Again, a lot of things that are happening for your future self that we don't understand. And it's perhaps bringing up irritation, annoyance, and it's like, what the hell energy. But a lot of things happen that sometimes we don't fully understand until a lot of time has passed or lapsed. So really take time here to tap into your spirituality. This has been another common thread, and something that, this is a separate video, that really denotes mentioning is figuring out what it means for you and how you can practice this on a daily basis. That's something that, again, requires more thought in a separate video, but this is something that I've encountered with clients and with folks in general when they are trying to integrate spirituality into their own life, especially wherever they are, you know, in the season of their life. I find that there's a lot of inconsistencies and irregularities. Next, we have Mars in Capricorn conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius. So this is happening before, and it'll form an exact conjunction with Pluto on the 13th through the 14th. Mars is in Capricorn in its final degrees around 27, I believe, at this time. And so it'll shift into Aquarius next week. So engines are roaring here loudly. And I feel like we're feeling this intense push and need to change and to make this change happen, to move forward. And this can bring up, again, some frustrations, impatience. It can bring up volatility. I would say a spectrum of temperament being expressed, maybe in the form of anger, yelling, lashing out, reactivity. But I feel generally that there's such an intense need here. A lot of this is like when the butterfly or the worm, okay, I'll just say the butterfly. When the butterfly is about to emerge from its cocoon, there's like a pressure, I would imagine, I don't know, it, you know, pops out. Or when a baby chick is about to come out of its egg, you know, it has to take some or make some pressure to crack the egg, right? So something to be mindful of surrounding this new moon. We have Jupiter in Taurus sextiling Saturn in Pisces. So we have continued discipline support from this energy. Many folks relate Saturn to the father. Obviously in Greek mythology, he was Kronos. I just get grandfatherly energy with him because I feel like there's well-intentioned support, but again, we don't always understand it at that time. So here there's support that we receive in terms of what we want to grow, where we want to grow, where we want to take that energy and expand. And also having to do with learning maybe from a higher perspective, spiritual learnings. It can be metaphysicals, pilgrimages. I'm getting tons of spiritual energy here. Pilgrimages and also different forms of travel, whether it's through books or geographic, like on the foot travel. This is a great lunation, as all of them are, obviously, since it's ruled by the moon, to tap into your intuition and higher guidance, because I feel like there's going to be forces here that are going to be supporting everyone, but you may not fully understand the pieces yet. And I have repeatedly gotten this, but this is going to help you connect all of them together into where you want to go. So increased opportunities for different forms of support in a practical way from people, in a spiritual way from your guides, from connecting to others, different relationships, also having fun. You can have fun in a disciplined way, but you can have fun too with Saturn, because Saturn wants also you to maintain responsibility for what it is that you want to do in your life, but you also have to inject different ways of doing it that align to you. We have both the sun and moon in Aquarius, sextiling both the north node, well, the nodes, I should say, north and south, and Chiron in Aries. So this is a lot of beautiful and supportive energy about going after what it is that you want. This is a tidal wave energy I described, helping you to continue to heal, to consolidate your identity and expression, and uplift your vitality. And this is one of the transits I wanted to spend a little bit more time in, because the other ones I talked about during the weekly energy forecast. So these energies provide an opportunity to heal emotional wounds. Have any of you been feeling like things are popping up, or you are remembering or connecting to circumstances, events, perhaps even people coming back in your life and pinging you almost as a last attempt or a last way, or providing closure to that cycle or to a particular lesson or memory or something that you know needed to be resolved? Things have been popping off quickly and it's been extremely emotional. Say with Pluto too, with the sink energy, it's like putting a cleaner down the sink and shit comes up. Usually it doesn't. I don't think, maybe that's the wrong one. Maybe it's the not the bathroom. Maybe it's the bathtub. I don't know. I just kept seeing like bubbles coming up. So there's a lot being unearthed and it's being cleansed out. It's very cathartic, but it's also, we're humans. We feel this shit. It's also painful because some of these you're remembering. You may have had explosions of anger, crying, you know, your mood going from high to low, low to high, and the spectrum of your temperament moving back and forth quickly like a pendulum. So this energy with this lunation allows us to finally look at some of these things that have been coming up, especially as of late. A lot of opportunities here to heal wounds from the past, heal wounds related to the mother or perhaps the mother figures that are occurring or have occurred for you, and other feminine energies, and provide a lot of self-parenting here. A lot of this energy is around providing what it is that you didn't get to meet any of those needs, especially where you may have been triggered or wounded. Because nurturing self-love and emotional validation is something we can all provide for ourselves. And also, in many ways, this is the healer or healing energy we can provide to others, for those of you that offer this type of work or you are going after this in your life. This is further energy to help us close the door, like I mentioned. A lot of things have come back full circle from different situations and people. It's almost like a karmic loop. It's coming to a close, it's ending. Lessons for that, it's almost like, okay, we can check off with certain people and certain memories because we're moving forward and we are getting new ones to learn. So I feel like these alignments are offering a lot of immense healing through breakthroughs for folks, especially around redefining their identity and who they were, because many of the things that are popping off, like fireworks, triggering you, bringing up emotions, you may be, you may be remembering things or all of a sudden get angry, especially if you're in a relationship with people, because relationships, that's where a lot of this shit pops off. When you are in relation with someone and something you remember comes back or resurfaces, and you're like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to upset me or hurt me, or why am I feeling this way? A lot of this is coming up. So we can transmute this and essentially end this. So we can come to a finale here with this particular, it could be a person or the theme that we are learning around it. It could be boundaries again, honoring ourselves. We also have Venus and Capricorn squaring both the nodes and Chiron and Aries. So who or what is holding you back? Major themes with the nodes, and we're going to see this going on throughout the year until the nodes shift, obviously, but throughout the year, regarding other folks, other relationships. A lot of wounds surrounding money, finances. This has been coming up, especially since we have Uranus in Taurus. A lot of instability with markets at large and macro level. I would say issues, institutions, it could be agriculture, food insecurity, housing as well, but there's wounds here surrounding finances, scarcity, trauma regarding food, food insecurity, females, love, romance, pleasure, it could be appearance, and many others. I kept getting doorstopper energy, which prevents us from ascending forward. So again, who or what is holding you back? It could be a lesson, it could be a person, it could be a situation, something that you're clinging on to. Because the North Node energetically represents the doorway forward. And then the South Node, you could say, it's the door behind us. It's like the back door of the house. And I know people use different doors, but this is all metaphorical. It's like, okay, we're going to keep that shut. Or you can say it's like the toilet, what we're releasing. So these events, a lot of things may be coming up, and this lunation may be perhaps the apex or the pinnacle of where you're feeling like, you know what? I'm ready to let that part go or let this go. Because these lunations are as much about letting go as they are starting new, particularly the new moon. The next day on February 10th, we have the Year of the Dragon in Wood. And I go into more detail in the weekly energy forecast, but very briefly, this really emphasizes generosity, service, compassion, empathy, morality, and ethics. Let's move on to the degree theory at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. So these are some themes that are popping up or that may be popping up for you. And they have a lot more symbolism, maybe that's the word. I don't think symbology is. I'm like making up my own terms right now. They may have more meaning to you or a different form of meaning than simply what I'm reading off. So just pay attention. Key themes related to 21 degrees of Sagittarius. We have foreign country or abroad, highway, main street avenue, large size, broad extended, horses, a stable, tennis courts, thighs, hips, long legs, liver troubles. When I say liver is in charge of detoxifying, of cleansing. So you can also take that in terms of perhaps, if it relates to your health, but also something more metaphorical, modeling, publishing journals, cinema, video, films, religion, priest, shaman, colonel, generals, voyages, tourism, travel, higher education, border, at the border, games and board games. So there were a lot of hot pockets. And I'm like, wait a minute. We're in hot pockets of food. There were a lot of pop culture references here coming through strongly. So I want to say pay attention to what it is you're consuming, particularly this week and around this lunation, 2 weeks before have obviously passed, 2 weeks after. Especially I kept getting around movies, theater, film, music, social media, technology, any form of communication. I feel like you're going to get a message or have a deeper understanding of what you've experienced or have had to go through, particularly with what comes up with this lunation. I also want to say, have you ever watched a movie? Or perhaps movies you watched when you were growing up and then you watched them later in life, and it gives you a completely different message because you're coming from a very different perspective in life, and also you're a lot older. But have you ever seen any of that or have read a book and you see yourself as a protagonist or one of the main characters? This is what I've been getting with this. So some of you will be making these types of, I call them virtual pilgrimages, through these different pop culture references that I mentioned, but also through other resources and connecting and linking up with other folks. And as you continue to expand in your learning, your knowledge, and your own spirituality, you're going to see yourself almost like a movie reflected, and you're going to understand things from a different way. And some of you, it could evoke and emote different forms of emotions that are coming up for healing. Well, you know, when we consider emotions kind of like toilets, maybe not like toilets, but they have to come out. And when they come out, you always feel better. Even if you yell, even if you cry or you laugh, you feel better. So a lot of this is cleansing this out, especially long stored emotions. The Sabian symbol for this lunation is at 20 degrees of Aquarius, and this represents a large white dove bearing a message. So before I continue on, I just want to pause and ask you to ask yourself, what does a dove, especially a white dove, represent, and a message? So a lot of themes about messages coming through practically, but I feel especially psychically and in connection to your spiritual team. White dove, just before I even got into the message, for me, doves represent a lot of inner peace, joy, beauty, almost like hitting reset, spirituality, and connection. So the symbol, here I'm reading the excerpt, it brings solace, comfort, and joy to those who need help. A large white dove brings messages, possibly ones you've been waiting for some time. You may need to resolve your situation by relying on peaceful messages that come from your spiritual center. This should be offered with gentleness and without malice. It can indicate either being seen as a savior or one who needs saving, as you will at times be the one bearing a message, at other times receiving it. Whichever side you're on, there can be relief once you've been able to assimilate the messages that are being revealed. Blessings delivered. All is well. It also signifies celebration, somebody who brings blessed relief to others, news, announcements, issues of hope and salvation, birds, spiritual messages. Sticking with the assumption that things will never improve, refusing solace, shooting the messenger, not being content no matter what's said, depression. So the final takeaway here, you see the threads connecting? This is a lunation to connect with yourself, your spiritual team, and what's beyond this. Because I feel like when we cross this transcendental bridge that Aquarius represents and that I discussed during the archetype section, especially the eccentricities, it often denotes. So these themes, something that helps is to sit with them, sit what's coming up in your life right now, because there's a lot of synchronicities that are happening. A lot of these lunations, especially with the energies as we're moving, I'll just say forward into the future, they're really asking us to connect strongly to our spirituality, because there's been a breakup of faith, of confidence, of trust, and power, fragmentation and decentralization in so many ways, across many institutions, many systems, many levels, and many people. And one of the things that people can never take away from us is our spirituality, is our own connection to the divine. Let's get into the channeled messages, you all. One sec. I channeled 2 songs, and the first, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I had no idea why. No idea. The first song I channeled was the Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way. The song was from 1999, and I'm like, I started laughing. So I had to listen to this a few times. And the lyrics, and I understood it because the lyrics didn't completely make sense, because it seems kind of contradictory. And I had to do some research. So these lyrics, now I can see that we're falling apart from the way that it used to be. Yeah, no matter the distance, I want you to know that deep down inside of me, you are my fire, the one desire. You are, don't want to hear you. There's a constant juxtaposition between the past and the future. And I was watching this over and over because it opens up with them arriving from an airplane. You hear it zooming loudly. Mercury generally rules commerce, travel, airplanes, vehicles. Some say Uranus too. Some denote Uranus as the higher octave of Mercury. So there's something coming in from the future that's going to help you resolve the past, but also consolidate who you are in terms of your identity. And what was interesting was the way they dressed. They dressed in black and white, and the way they moved too, because when they were dressed in white, it almost felt like they were transparent, like ghost-like. I encourage you to listen or watch the video. I always link them below. Again, I always, disclaimer, I don't get anything from these links. If I ever do for any reason, I will let you guys know, but these are just for your reference so you can understand this, and you will get your own messages as well. The song automatically points to relationship issues, because when I listen to it, I'm like, this sounds like a relationship song. And when I did research, it was, but one of the bandmates, I forgot which one, but he implied that however you receive the song and however you filter it, I'm thinking of the word and I can't think of it right now, perception. However you take in the song and whatever comes up for you, that's the correct meaning for you. So it's almost left a little bit ambiguous. And some say the songwriters to the song, their first language was not English. So some say maybe that's why some of the lyrics, especially in the chorus, don't make sense. But overall, there's some type of emotional distance with this relationship. There's confusion. And I feel, even though it talks about another, I feel like that other is ourselves. It's almost like when we're trying to unite or bring into union two parts of ourselves, you can denote it like feminine, masculine energy, but I feel like this has to do more with the past and where we want to go in the future. So there's something here about resolving those two and bringing those to a juncture so that we can honor who we were, perhaps grieve it, give gratitude. Even if we didn't like it and don't want it to happen, we can give gratitude for what we have learned and who it has made us. So this is about honoring your desires and where you would like to be taken to or go towards. The second song that I channeled was Clearwater, Creedence, Revival, CCR's Have You Ever Seen the Rain from 1970. This song was written by John Fogerty about the departure of his brother and fellow songwriter and bandmate Tom Fogerty. I hope I'm saying that right. His brother abruptly left the group, and the song seemed to suggest, almost prophetize. I feel like I'm saying things wrong, you all. The group's impending breakup. And the lyrics here that I kept hearing was, someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water. I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? I want to know, have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day? This is the exact energy I was feeling and what this lunation is bringing up about the changes that are happening concurrently with healing, with adulting and lifing, and also carving out and making progress towards where you want to go. So you may be seeing glimpses too and feeling this energy of things to come, things to shift. And one of the best ways here is to remember, perhaps to acknowledge, and also finally to accept how ephemeral everything is. You know, the famous saying, change is the only constant that we have. This is true, and this is what's showing us how we can navigate change perhaps in a better or different way than we have before. So it's not really good or bad, but it's showing us, excuse me, both sides of the coin. I also want to say I never pick these songs. There's a shitload of songs out there. It would take me way too long. I channel these songs during meditative states before I even do anything with these lunations. And I always get the songs and do that part of the lunation research first. And then I go back and do the astrology and the Sabian symbol, etc. So sometimes I don't fully understand what some of these songs mean until I listen to them. And then it just clicks like little pulleys and gears. Let's get into the messages. Message number 1. I got stripes, stripes, stripes. And then I saw zebra stripes. This message really emphasizes around this lunation about showing up, it's about showing up as not only who you really are and want to be, but who you are in your natural state. So think about when you are with close friends, you're having fun, you're just talking, laughing, and you're in your true nature. You may act goofy, you may act fun, you're just free, you're free-spirited. This is what's coming through here, and there are some features that may stand out among people, or you may feel like other people just see and you're like, I don't want them to see that. And there's an intentionality here, I feel, or perhaps maybe an insecurity around hiding that. I kept getting that because with the zebras, when you see a zebra, you can spot them. They're really easy to see because of their unique stripes and colors. And amazingly, I mean, I'm not a zebra expert and I didn't really do a lot of research on zebras. I'm remembering from some childhood work that I did on animals, like reports. But each stripe is different on every zebra. And again, so keeping it that way, I don't want to go too much into zebras. Everyone has their own unique stripes. And this lunation is really asking you, it's time to honor that. And any fears that are coming up, I feel like it's about being seen for not what you can contribute or bring, but how different that contribution may be. And embracing all your quirks, unique features, and anything that differentiates you from the crowd and from others is what is really being emphasized here. It's not to say I'm different and this is why I'm doing this. It's because you have a different energetic contribution to offer this world. No matter if someone has done something similar, think about songwriters and music. We've got a lot of singers and dancers and actors and actresses, but each one is extremely different. And this is the same energy coming through here. There was a line at the end of one of my favorite movies, and that came up while I was channeling these messages. It's called A Little Romance. I believe it's from 1979, late 70s. It's with Laurence Olivier and Diane Lane. And it was about two young teens that fall in love. They're very precocious. They talk about really deep things, existentialism, argue about Heidegger and, deep questions about life. And something that they said at the end when she had to relocate back to the United States from France and they were saying goodbye was, how am I going to remember? What if we forget? And he tells her, the teen boy tells the teen girl, I don't want to be like anybody else. We're different. And it was a way of honoring who they were because they already, because of their very different perhaps adult interests at that time, because their characters are about 13. They were interested in things perhaps older folks were more into. But again, they were very precocious, very intelligent and intellectual young adults. And that really stuck with me because I feel like that's perhaps the mantra or the motto of this Aquarius new moon. You're not supposed to be like anybody else, and you shouldn't want to be like anybody else. You can emulate and perhaps admire certain qualities of people, but it's about making it for you, turning that into something that is about you, coming from you. So these stripes from the zebra are representative of things only you have. And this lunation is asking you to really embrace that, or find ways to start practicing how to embrace those features, qualities, and things that you want to contribute and bring more of into your own life and into the world. Keep practicing that. Message number 2, pop rocks. Yes, like the candies. I kept getting something popping. And to me, this activated something about taking action, a little bit like fire energy. And this is about just doing it. So if there's something that you've been always wanting to do that really connects to message number 1, in particular, something that sets you apart or that's different or unique, or you're like, you know what, I really want to change something about my appearance, or I really want to change my trajectory in college or school or my career, or I just want to do something different. It's going to be, I can list a shitload of examples. Everyone is going to know what they want to change in their life. It could be simple, changing nail polish, changing your hair, cutting it differently, new glasses, whatever. There's something here that you have always wanted to change, particularly in terms of how you identify or relate to. So it could be physical appearance, right? Like I mentioned some things. It could also be how you identify on so many different levels. You can identify as a parent, a friend, and then your work titles. There's so many things. So I'll ask you with this message, how do you identify right now? How would you like to identify? Because those are some common themes, and also providing ideas for you on how you can practice this. There's also fear that's coming up about doing this, about taking action, because that means you may be seen or become more visible. And I feel like there's also different tiers. I kept getting like a spectrum, like a thermometer. You know how there's different temperatures? It's like that. There's different fears. So for some folks, going to dinner alone may not be scary. And for others, it's like, oh no. Same thing, getting a tattoo. For others, it's no biggie. Dyeing your hair. Everyone has their own thermometer of fears, their own spectrum of fears. So it's really for you about identifying, as you keep practicing, ways of connecting to who you are, or who you would like to become. Different ways that you can constantly engage with this so that you can honor who you are and not hide it or dismiss it or try to delay that, because I feel like the fear is holding folks back from identifying a certain way. Again, when it comes with change, because change is the undercurrent here that is very strong. This lunation this week and in general, Aquarius season, there's a lot of change, a lot of newness, a lot of progress, and doing things in a different way that we haven't done. That's asking us, okay, it's time, move forward. So take that action, make a decision, and just do it. Again, it'll differ for everyone. So you identify something that you have been wanting to do, but you haven't for whatever reason, most likely due to some type of fear. And take the opportunity and do it. Several things are going on as well, and this is something I mentioned earlier in this reading, because the pop rocks, I kept feeling that a lot. Extra jitteriness, anxiousness, restlessness, nervousness, electric jolts or currents you may be feeling running through your body. You may just be feeling like you're plugged in with your phone into the socket. Have any of you ever put your finger in the socket? I don't recommend it. I did it as a kid. I was always curious. And so I'm like, I stuck something, not my finger because it didn't fit, but I stuck something like a stick into it, and I got electrocuted, but it was mild. Again, I'm not suggesting it or recommending it, but it just feels like nerve-wracking if you've ever felt that. And there's several things going on here. First, some of you are just naturally sensitive to energies because some people don't feel it. But if you are, more than likely, you are sensitive. You may be an empath, or you're just very attuned to these different changes that are happening psychically. Also, you may feel like something is coming or about to change, and this is something I've talked about already, but you don't know what it is. And I think that can be the most fearful thing for humans, because we want to plan. It's a way of controlling. More importantly, the bottom root, it's about safety and security, because when we know, well, then we can plan around it, right? But when we don't know, it's like crap. Also, you're being asked to shift and let go. That's another reason why we're feeling a lot of these things. You know, pop rock energy, as I call it, but also these energies, these perhaps feelings, sensations, symptoms that I've already denoted. There's a lot of things that is shifting. Things are shifting very, very, very quickly, and it could really take a toll on your sympathetic nervous system. And we want to shift that to the parasympathetic system of resting, right, and digesting. Finally, a psychic download is coming. There are a lot of downloads that are waiting to come out, and with this energy of this lunation, I feel like they're going to come out fast. You know, like boom, boom, like that. I also saw a scarab beetle. So there's a bunch of messages with the pop rock messages, but I saw a scarab beetle here, and it was glistening. It had an indigo blue, green, and purple shades. So for some of you, the scarab beetle could be your spirit animal. But I remember this was prominent in ancient Egypt because I had a fascination with ancient Egypt when I was a kid. I loved it. In fourth grade, we learned so much about Egypt, the Middle East, its cultures, and it was just fascinating for me. And I feel like many of you are going to find this fascinating and also connect with this, because some of you may have had past lives in Egypt or be Egyptian or have some type of connection to the present day. The scarab beetle represents the circle of life and the cycle of life. So we have birth, life, death, rebirth, and growth. So it's continuous. I kept getting continuous, continual, and I kept butchering them up earlier. So upon death, too, the ancient Egypts would adorn the body with scarab beetles because it was akin to providing passage, safety, and a form of travel, like compensation for the underworld. And it provided luck too. So there's a lot of transformation protection that we're getting here from both worlds. And I'm going to leave that open and you can interpret that as you wish because we are crossing both. And these themes are being highlighted for you because, like I mentioned, there's transformation that's happening very rapidly within, and you're going to see it without or outside of you. Okay, message number 3, Fraggle Rock. I know. Any of you from the 80s will know this. This was a cartoon TV show of Muppets or Muppet-like characters by Jim Henson, who created the Muppets as well. You know, Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, etc. I couldn't believe it because it's been a long time since I heard of or remembered Fraggle Rock, and I used to watch it. Immediately before doing research, I got this was about the reorganization of friendships, groups, communities, alliances, who you connect with and why, and who you network with and why. A lot of themes about just people, like whoever you connect with. You know, like E.T. did this, a form of connection. So whoever is in your vicinity, it could be someone passing you by, like a neighbor or someone on the street. It talks about all of this. And that's what the main message was. And then I did research on this because I'm like, okay, let's see. This was the opening theme that I received from 1983, 1987. So that's something you can look at if you want. There are a bunch of Muppets, you know, going down the cave. And it was actually, I would say, quite progressive for the time that it came out. But it's amazing how many similar themes came out around this time. The show was about the vision of Fraggle Rock that was articulated by Jim Henson. And I'm going to, the rest is in quotes because I'm quoting from a passage that I found in my research. So these aren't my words. So Fraggle Rock, it was about depicting a colorful and fun world, but also a world with a relatively complex system of symbiotic relationships between different races, and races is in quotes, races of creatures, an allegory to the human world where each group was somewhat unaware of how interconnected and important they were to one another. This allegorical world allowed the program to entertain and amuse while seriously exploring complex issues of prejudice, spirituality, personal identity, environment, and social conflict. I'm like, shit, Fraggle Rock could have summed up this lunation in Aquarius. For any of you that are connected or want to simply visit that, you can go to YouTube or just Google if you want to see clips, because I feel like you're going to be hit a different way and you will perhaps interpret when viewing these cartoons in a very different way than you are with a kid and as a kid. And they'll say, I sure as hell did. Fraggle Rock generally refused to oversimplify any individual issue and instead simply illustrated the consequences and inherent difficulties of different actions and relationships. So the Fraggles are learning important lessons, but they're not aware that they are learning them. And this is something that I highlighted here. The ideals, and again, not my words, I'm quoting, the ideals of friendship, being true to yourself and learning to love those who are incredibly different. These were the cornerstones of Jim Henson's work throughout his career. It's absolutely amazing how this message really hit the nail for the energies I was feeling with this lunation. So this is about when you, again, going back to everything that I've said, it's shifting. Again, it's not going to happen in an hour. I feel in the future it will, like I mentioned earlier. But as you're shifting your identity, many of you are going to come into contact with your own Fraggles. You're going to meet people that are very different from you, but there's going to be an underlying energy of acceptance, of honoring who they are, and there's going to be a point of connection. Almost like when you have Venn diagrams and you have that circle in the middle where the two circles overlap. It's like that. I also feel too, as you start connecting to who you want to be or who you are in terms of your identity, you're naturally going to attract people like that. Ever notice, like, when you pretend to be someone or something that you're not, you attract people into your sphere, but they may not be the authentic people that you're looking for because you are resonating on a different frequency that's related to that particular identity that may not be true to you. So when you finally, it's like when people finish school and they go busting out of the schools and they're like, summer or whatever it is, vacation time, holidays. It's like that. When you finally allow yourself to be who you are, I'm not going to say it's easy because there's different fears and perhaps wounding and things to unpack, traumas to unpack with this. But this is what this lunation is saying. In other words, there's really nothing to be afraid of. There's so much more I want to say. I feel like I can do a separate video on Fraggle Rock. Message number 4, turn the noise off. I kept hearing a lot of static. I was hearing, sensing, and seeing. You know the static that used to come from the TVs, the older TVs, where it would be black and white? Either sometimes it would go out, or you'd be in the middle of a show and you're like, what the hell? Or you would move the antenna to get a visual image of the show or movie. That's what I kept seeing all around me. And I got it too with the radio. When you're trying to find your radio, and I'm not talking about the digital or analog radios, I'm talking about the ones that you had to dial and shift to get to the radio station. Sometimes there would be static. And again, you would finagle with the antenna and it just wouldn't work. And you could hear your music in the distance, you know, like an echo. And you're like, that's my favorite song. And it wouldn't come through clearly. Those were moments. I kept hearing that. So why are we being urged to do this? Because there's something here about letting you know you're about to receive incoming, impending messages. I already mentioned this, so I won't belabor this. You're going to receive a lot of psychic and intuitive downloads. And some of you are, and I'll just say all of us, there's just too much clutter. I'm saying in terms of noise around this. This could be emotional, mental, spiritual, physical clutter. We just have too much going on, stress, where we're not able to receive these messages because we're not even noticing that they're here. It's not like it knocks on you and it's like delivery, you got message number 1, psychic download coming from this ancestor. It doesn't, at least in my experience, doesn't work that way. They're very subtle messages and sometimes they pass us by because we're not fully present, aware, and connected. So pay attention during this lunation if you're finding that you're feeling stressed out, frazzled, perhaps mentally overstimulated. This is also a cue for you to take a step back and find a way to prevent that, deal with it, or at least allow your mind to rest because some of this information is coming through to you. There's a lot of stuff I kept getting, a lot of things that are floating around akin to a satellite. So what helps you connect to your inner peace, because this is going to help attune your frequency, similar to the radio, similar to the TV example that I mentioned earlier. It's going to vary for everyone, but this is like your own antenna that's about to capture or that wants to capture these messages. So really ask yourself what you can do to perhaps shift some of this noise in your life. Message number 5, final message, is finding inner peace with who you are. This is tied to message number 2 on Pop Rocks. You know when it's hot outside and you start taking layers off, or even when it's cold, you obviously naturally put on more layers. What I kept seeing in this vision was someone in cold weather taking off layers. And I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense because it's cold outside and there was a backdrop of harsh winter, snow, and I could see the wind. So I was like, why is someone taking off their clothes? And what I realized was obviously that had nothing to do with the clothing coming off itself, but there was something about being naked and being seen for who they are. So there's a fear I kept feeling about stepping into your own shoes that you already had and the way you came into this world as a divine, energetic being and who you are now. Because these are the fears that came up. fear around judgment, ostracization, being ostracized. I want to say ostrich. I'm like, I know. I had a little bit of trouble pronouncing that word. Criticism, being hunted down or persecuted or not accepted or loved. Those were the fears that came right immediately to me. Past life issues here are arising for some folks into the present for clearance, not so they could ping you and they're telling you it's going to happen again. That's not what I felt. I feel like it's coming up for you very strongly. So the feelings that you're feeling around fear in terms of being exposed, being seen, especially in terms of your identity, how you relate, how you're rebuilding that or shifting that, it brings up that same feeling that you may have felt in those lifetimes, past lives. And sometimes we can't, our soul, our body, our energetic body doesn't differentiate that. It almost feels like it's that day. So I want to also acknowledge that what you're feeling is very real. It's the energy in the body. So there's something here about feeling that frazzled feeling as well. And that's something that I mentioned already with the sympathetic nervous system is on fight or flight mode. It's activated and we want to, we feel what is it called? On guard. So we want to take some type of action and we're trying to shift that into a more restful, mindful, soothing parasympathetic nervous system, which is in charge of this area. So naturally, I feel like everyone already knows how to do this. There's this huge element of self-parenting that's involved here, and this is continuous. So if you're hearing me constantly say this is what I'm getting. And a lot of the keys, perhaps antidotes, prescriptions for a lot of these things that are happening, there's some feeling here about not feeling safe. And so it'd be great if we can get take a vitamin and we're safe for the rest of our lives. But a lot of this we have to induce ourselves. So if you're feeling this, this is also calling for you to engage in practices or rituals, something that feels good to you and that calms you. And there's a compound effect. First time you can feel it right away. And the more you practice this, which is going to be very personal for everyone, the more you're going to feel this. Some of these include meditation, mindfulness, yoga, body work like massage, acupuncture, and there's different forms of massages too that I'm not mentioning and that I'm not even aware of. Breath work, different types of foods that you'll know that are helpful for your body and maybe that don't really help you or that are not optimal. Sleep and stress reduction. I also kept seeing animals, petting them. So some of you may feel with this lunation, maybe spending more time with animals, petting animals, going to some type of farm, sanctuary, petting, maybe zoo, place, habitat, petting animals. That could also mean yourself. Also has to do with touch. It's interesting because when you can feel stressed out, there's something about touch and weight. That's why weighted blankets work for some people. But touch, some of you may want to almost like self-massage or like you're petting yourself. I know it could be weird, but try it. It really helps calm down and bring down your heart rate. And as always, as you guys know, I'm not a medical doctor, so please always consult what you feel is best for yourself. But these are things that came up. I kept feeling, again, like an intense fear of simply being who we already are. So many of us come into this world already born already into who we are, right? But then we've got layers of crap, human crap, as I call it, shit, traumas, people that vomit their own beliefs, everything. And then it's like that imagery of putting on layers in a winter season. It's kind of like that. And a lot of us aren't doing that. And so there's a fear of becoming naked. I'm not talking about naked, nude in the way most people think. I'm talking about being seen, essentially the way you came into this world. So the emotional disconnection that may be present with this lunation, I feel like it's the fact that we have one foot again in another timeline and one backwards and then going forwards. So we're straddling in the middle. You know, if you've ever come maybe across geographic lines like state lines or country lines, people like to say, oh, I'm in two countries in one day or in one place. It's like that, but this is spiritual because you can't really see this. And it's hard to feel like we don't fit in when we don't accept ourselves first. That's probably the most important thing to remember. There's a lot here that I got, again, really about identity, about shifts and changes and embracing those when our identity has expired or we are ready to move on from that. Overall, this lunation is really asking us in many ways to connect to something very deeper. A lot of these emotions that are coming up, I feel like, are coming from the past. And they're being dinged now, not so you could, be tortured, no, but so you can simply feel them and realize that you've made it. You've learned this lesson. Now it's ready to transmute that and let it go and integrate it. And many of you are going to be helping other people in different ways with these lessons you've learned. Doesn't mean you have to be an atypical healer role, just your words, your presence, your energy, the company, and the way that you extend support to others is going to be healing. And so overall, if there's anything to take away from this, it's to get clearer and ask yourself, how do I identify? Who am I in this season of my life and where do I want to go? What no longer fits me? Kind of like when you go through a closet and maybe you're getting rid of clothes. Ask yourself what identity no longer fits you. Maybe you're a parent and your child has left the home and you're an empty nester. Doesn't mean you're not a parent anymore. That's a lifelong title, perhaps. But maybe your identity is shifting in that season, or you are a recent student and now you're going into the workforce, or you were in the workforce and now you're retired. So our identities are shifting, and I feel like every year it's an important, hence we always have this new moon in Aquarius every year. But it's important to revisit this and ask ourselves, who am I in this season of our lives? Because sometimes we get stuck with identities that weren't ours, that were ascribed to us, that were thrown to us, that we thought fit us, or that we've outgrown. Just like I've mentioned, you can be a perpetual student all your life, but you don't have to identify with who you were in that season, right? Maybe as a high schooler or a college student or whatever it is. So this is a beautiful time to upgrade who you are, your appearance as well, if you'd like. A lot of energy around that. But more importantly, the qualities you wish to imbue, what you wish to take forward, and who you wish to embrace when you look in the mirror. It doesn't have to be overly adorned or complicated, because Aquarius energy is probably very simplistic compared to others. Very practical as well in many respects. So you guys, I hope this new moon in Aquarius video has offered some insights, support. I hope you got something out of it. Comment down below. I would love to hear your stories. Are you in Aquarius? Happy birthday if your birthday is today or on this new moon. And if you have any insights to offer as an Aquarius, I'd love to hear them. I'm always interested. Maybe a future series. I have so many things always coming and going. I would love to hear more from these different signs as we go through the lunations and just different videos that I do to get practical real life experiences from folks. If you have an intention for this lunation, solidify it down below. Let me know. It's important when we connect, especially in a very positive, beneficial way. We can lend support to one another, because I'm here to connect with others. I'm here to provide safe, supportive spaces to learn, to grow, to simply continue on our soul journey. Thank you guys for being here. I truly appreciate you. If this has helped, don't forget to hit the like button. Consider subscribing. I'd love to have you be a part of this community. I will see you soon. Have a beautiful and amazing, I hope you get amazing insights for this new moon in Aquarius.